So out of the crypto ecosphere, only two cryptocurrencies have been classified legally. And those are, of course, Bitcoin and Ethereum, which to date have both been classified as commodities. And Ethereum is especially notable in the sense that Ethereum had an ICO, right? And you see a great deal of regulation and SEC enforcement action against ICOs. And the lay of the land from a regulation standpoint is almost that any ICO token is in fact a security. But Ethereum, the SEC determined that it was decentralized enough to where it wasn't in fact a security. And right now, Ethereum works on a proof of work model. And I've discussed proof of stake versus proof of work here before, but as a refresher, proof of work involves computing power, right? Having nodes complete highly complex mathematical equations in an effort to approve new blocks or new issuances of Ethereum in a very simple term. Now, Ethereum 2.0 is coming online in the next, say, 6 months or so. And the context or the concept is that proof of work is environmentally unfriendly. It generates or requires a great deal of electricity to have all this computing power solving these mathematical computations. So they're moving to a proof of stake. And the proof of stake mechanism is a blockchain specific wealth calculator, if you will, right? So holders, in again, the simplest of terms, holders of Ethereum would have the ability to effectively approve new blocks of Ethereum. And in many ways, it's a profit-based model, right? It's a profit-based model in so much that under a proof-of-stake model, profits are distributed on a routine basis, often not at the behest of others, as you see in proof of work, but on the behest of the participant. So you see this sort of flow of return coming underneath a proof of stake model. So the question becomes, after Ethereum 2.0 comes on, does that shift the focus, and does Ethereum cease to be a commodity and become a security? And it's very difficult to tell, because you could argue on the reverse that under a proof of work, under the current model, there is this sort of centralized mining, right? There's this core effort, and if you go back to what the SEC relies upon when defining a security, it's sort of this common or joint enterprise for purposes of generating profit, right? Whereas proof of stake, you're going to have some sort of direct profit model, but it's going to be based on your stake, your ownership. So, which lends itself to kind of a quasi-partnership, right? So the question becomes, will this change? And I don't know the answer to that, obviously. I should, perhaps because I'm doing a video on this, but the reality is nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. And with Ethereum, as recently as October, when the CFTC chairman came out and reiterated that Ethereum is, in fact, a commodity, you've seen this movement alongside Bitcoin for commodity futures based on Ethereum, which I think inherently is a vitally essential thing for an organized trading market, as you see in Bitcoin. And you can argue about what the Bitcoin futures have done to the price of Bitcoin, but I think it's leveled it out, and I think it's brought some sanity to the market, right? Much to the chagrin of people who thought it would become $100,000 by December. But you could see the same thing happening with Ethereum. But the reality is, once Ethereum 2.0 comes on, will it in fact remain a commodity? And my guess, for what it's worth, is that it will remain a commodity because of its decentralized nature. And what's important to note is that for all this enforcement that you see with the SEC, it goes back to the actual offering of sale in the ICO, right? It's not so much the manner and form of the crypto post ICO, right? It really relates to the sale of the ICO and the fact that it was an unregistered sale of securities. And so the form of Ethereum will still remain decentralized. Granted, you have a proof of stake model that can in some manner distribute profits, but it's still a decentralized system, a purely decentralized system, about as pure as you're going to get. So I don't think it's going to change, but you know, I bet if you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 different answers. So I think that's the argument, but it's something to consider because you see this movement and you see some stability and regulatory stability with Ethereum, and people are going on and saying, okay, we're going to create Ethereum-based futures, Ethereum-based swaps to complement Bitcoin-based futures and swaps, which is in itself even great because now you're starting to separate the two, right? When they move in such lockstep, right? And now you're seeing this separation if those products come online. But you have this uncertainty with Ethereum 2.0, whether that's going to sort of shift the model. And of course, even if it were a security, could you have futures? And you can. I mean, it's possible to do it, but it's not viable from a regulatory standpoint, at least at this point, for it to happen. So that's my take. I think ultimately Ethereum is going to remain a commodity, but it is something to watch for when Ethereum 2.0 comes online, whether that proof of stake model is going to shift the balance to the security side from the commodity side. So check me out. Check out my videos, Adam Tracy, Tracy.io, Adam at adamtracy.io. Happy to answer any questions that you have, and I will talk to you soon.